Ever been here? You're planning the perfect summer knit, so you go hunting for the perfect yarn, but there are so many options. It's overwhelming, so you grab the first one that looks cute, and later, you regret it. It's either way too hot or it stretches out after one wear. Sound familiar? Don't worry, I got you. And by the way, this t-shirt, so comfortable. Hi, I'm Yvette. Welcome to my channel. Over here, I talk about all things art from painting to knitting. As a knitter living in a tropical climate, I've done extensive research on finding the best yarns suitable for warmer weather. While it might be easier to simply list out summer yarn brands, I believe it is much more imperative to talk about the fibers themselves, what they are, how they behave, and how they affect the final yarn and the final garment. The reality is that there are always new yarns being released, so brand recommendations can become outdated pretty quickly. That's why in this video, I want to focus on helping you understand what to look for in a summer yarn and how to evaluate it critically. Of course, I will still be suggesting specific yarns, but I will do so as I go through each fiber category. I've done extensive research on this topic, but if I've missed out on something or have misspoken, do feel free to let me know in the comments down below. We are all here to learn. If you feel like there's too much information, because there is a lot of information in this video, then feel free to skip to the segment that most interests you down below. I have created chapters for that. First of all, there are two main ways in which fibers can affect the final yarn as well as the final garment. The first is fiber content. It will affect how breathable and warm the final yarn is. In general, plant-based fibers tend to be a bit more breathable. These are things like cotton, linen, silk, whereas animal-based fibers like merino, alpaca, those are definitely much warmer and tend to retain more heat as well. The second factor is yarn weight, which refers to the thickness of the yarn. In general, the thicker the yarn, the warmer the garment will be, which is very logical. So lighter weights like fingering or sport weight yarns are definitely much more suited for summer garments, and personally for me, I wouldn't go anything higher than a DK or light worsted weight. I use this drop spell to knit the T number 1, and while I feel that that is super comfortable and really mostly cooling for the most part, I do think that this is the max I'll go in terms of the bulkiness of the yarn. This is a DK2 light worsted and I used a 4mm needle for this, so I think that this was the max I can go, because any thicker than that, I just know it'll be way too thick for me and I'll just be hot and cranky. Now let's talk about the different fibers that are commonly used in summer yarns. I will be going through each of the characteristics of the different fibers, from durability to softness, shine, elasticity, as well as breathability. And I will recommend some yarns under those categories as well. I chose to include all of these characteristics when describing these fibers because I feel like these are characteristics that I look for in a yarn specifically, because it is not just about finding the most breathable yarn for summer, but also looking into exactly how this fabric will likely hold up with wear over time and how soft and comfortable it will be wearing it as well. So before I move further on in this video, I just want to say that I try my best to include as many yarns as possible that suit different budgets. But with that being said, I do believe that for the most part, I am someone who wouldn't mind spending on yarn, because when I started knitting and crocheting last year, I started off with acrylic yarn because I wanted to save money, and I realized that it was just really not suitable for me. I ended up hating the garment and not wearing it at all, and as such, I actually do prefer to spend a little bit more for yarn that will actually result in a garment that I will actually want to wear. So with that being said, let's talk about the first fiber, which is cotton, and I have my computer over here because I can't remember all the statistics. With cotton, I feel like it is the first fiber that comes to mind when anyone mentions summer garments, and it is for a very good reason as well. Cotton is very durable and naturally resistant to peeling. However, it has poor elasticity, so it can't really retain its shape, and it tends to stretch up with wear as well. In terms of appearance, cotton is usually matte. However, mercerized cotton does have a slight sheen to it. It is generally soft, but softness can vary depending on the type of cotton. There's also different kinds of cotton. There is normal cotton, combed cotton, Pima cotton, and Egyptian cotton. Definitely, I know there are other kinds of cotton available as well, but I just named the ones that are most popular in terms of knitting. These differ in fiber length. The longer the fiber, the more durable the material is going to be, and the more soft the material is going to be as well. Normal cotton has the shortest fibers, and the fiber increases in length all the way to Egyptian cotton. Mercerized cotton, on the other hand, is chemically treated to improve shine, strength, and dye absorption. So for example, this is combed cotton. Since I have it, I just thought I'll show it to you guys, and this is how it looks like. It is really incredibly soft, and it's not even the second highest highest, or the highest in terms of softness, so it's really nice. I have knitted a little bit of it. It hasn't really peeled so far, not a lot of peeling, so I've been loving combed cotton a lot. So some examples of cotton yarns are Mandarin Petit by Sandnes Garn, a fingering weight cotton yarn with roughly 180 meters per 50 grams. It typically knits up at about 27 stitches per 10 cm on 3mm needles. So drop saffron is a sport weight yarn made from Egyptian cotton with approximately 160 meters per 50 gram ball. It gauges at about 24 stitches per 10 cm on 3mm needles. I feel like this is one of the yarns that I really want to try simply because it is Egyptian cotton and I want to see if it is as soft as it says it is. The third one is Drops Muskat. It is a DK2's light worsted weight. It is 100% Egyptian mercerized cotton with around 100 meters per 50 grams. It usually knits up to about 21 stitches per 10 cm on 4mm needles. Now, increasing in yarn weight, Drops Paris is an Aran weight cotton yarn with about 75 meters per 50 grams. It knits up at around 17 stitches per 10 cm on 5mm needles. Because it's quite thick, I wouldn't recommend it for tropical climates. I wouldn't personally buy this yarn, but if you're someone who's living in a cooler summer climate, then this could be a possible option for you as well. The last recommendation I have is Shiny Happy Cotton by Wool and the Gang. This is definitely a little bit on the pricey side. It is an Aran to worsted weight 100% Pima cotton yarn with about 142 meters per 100 grams. So next on the list is silk, which is another very popular summer garment. Silk is exceptionally strong and resistant to peeling. Like cotton, it has low elasticity, so garments may stretch out over time or lose shape. One of silk's signature features is its naturally high sheen, and I find that the sheen really gives any project a little bit more of an elevated, classy appearance, and it definitely makes for a more luxurious summer garment. It is also incredibly soft and smooth to the touch, and it has good breathability as well, making it really perfect for warm weather garments. So the most common types of silk you find on the market are mulberry silk and tussar silk. There's also burret silk as well, which I'll talk about later. So mulberry silk has long, fine, uniform fibers, making it very smooth, soft, and luxurious. It is also the strongest and most wrinkle-resistant of the silk types. Tussar silk, on the other hand, has shorter, thicker, and more uneven fibers, resulting in a slightly coarser texture and a more matte finish. There is also airy silk, which has short fibers that must be carded before they are spun. This creates more space between the fibers, which makes it much more breathable and more cooling to wear as well. So the last type is burret silk, which I do have a few of here, and I'll show it to you later. It is made from the leftover shorter fibers after spinning the other silk, so it's kind of like the leftover silk, if you will. Burret silk has a bit more of a slubby textured surface, giving your finished fabric a more rustic and matte appearance. While it is less smooth and shiny than maybe mulberry silk or tussar silk, it is still really nice, soft and breathable, which makes it perfect still as a summer fiber. So one example of those is the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk. It is actually 100% burret silk, and you can see that it doesn't really have that classical silk sheen that we mostly associate with silk. It is also a little bit rougher to the touch. You can see it is really much more textured as well, also given that this was a bit more loosely spun. So this is how it kind of looks like. So some examples of 100% silk yarns are the Knitting for Olive Pure Silk. It is 100% burret silk, as I mentioned just now. It is approximately 250 meters per 50 gram ball. It typically knits up at about 28 stitches per 10 cm on 3mm needles, so that makes it a fingering to even a light fingering weight. The next one that I have to recommend is the Rosarios for Madragua. I hope I pronounced that right. So it is a fingering weight 100% silk yarn with about 200 meters or 218 yards per 50 grams. Its recommended gauge is around 28 stitches per 10 cm on 3mm needles. The last one is BC Garn Soft Silk. It is a sport weight, once again 100% burret silk yarn with about 350 meters or 382 yards per 100 grams. It knits up at about 20 stitches per 10 cm on 3 to 3.5mm needles. I couldn't really find other options for mulberry silk and tussar silk, so if you have those recommendations, do let me know down below. The next fiber that I want to talk about is linen, and linen I think is a bit more of a controversial fiber. Some people love it, some people don't. I think it's a classic summer fiber. It is made from the flax plant and has some really great qualities that make it really perfect for warm weather garments. Linen is extremely durable. It is really resistant to peeling, so even after wearing your garment for a really long time, it will still look good as new. That said, it does have very low elasticity, so it wouldn't bounce back like wool does. In general, no plant-based fiber will really bounce back like animal-based fibers do, and it will tend to lose shape or stretch out over time as well. And because it has very low elasticity, it tends to wrinkle a little bit more, and it won't stretch as much when you knit it, which will tend to feel a little bit stiff in your hands, and that's why it's controversial, because some people hate working with it because of how hard it feels on the hands. It has a bit more of a matte finish, so nothing like silk or mercerized cotton. It looks a bit more rustic and a bit more natural looking. So when you're knitting with 100% linen, as I said before, you'll probably notice that it feels quite crisp at first. It doesn't really stretch out much, so it might feel a little bit hard on the hands. But one thing about linen is that it tends to block beautifully. So after frequent washing and wearing it, it just gets softer with the use, and it will end up being a really nice and soft garment eventually. So linen is also highly breathable and really moisture wicking, so it makes it really ideal for hot and humid days, which is exactly where I live in. Some examples of 100% linen yarns are the Quince & Co. Sparrow. If I recall correctly, I think this is a bit more on the pricey side. So it is a fingering weight 100% organic linen yarn with approximately 150 meters or 164 yards per 50 grams. It is knitted with 3.25mm needles. BC Garn Lino is a sport to heavy fingering weight 100% linen yarn with around 150 meters per 50 grams. Recommended gauge is around 21 stitches per 10 cm on 3 to 4mm needles. Another summer-friendly fiber worth mentioning is lyocell, more commonly known as tencel. It is made up of a regenerated cellulose fiber made from wood pulp, typically eucalyptus, spruce, or beech. And in terms of durability, lyocell is generally strong. It holds up well. It can peel with friction over time, especially in areas that experience a lot of rubbing. It has moderate elasticity. I think amongst all of the plant-based fibers, lyocell has the best elasticity. However, of course, not so much as animal-based fibers still. It also has a soft and subtle sheen. Of course, not as much as silk itself, but definitely better than a matte fiber like linen. It is also exceptionally soft, really smooth to the touch, and is often described as being softer than silk, which makes it a dream to wear next to skin. And finally, it excels in breathability. It is super breathable and extremely moisture wicking, which makes it super perfect for hot and humid places. Now I just want to show my Wool and the Gang Tina tape yarn. You can see that it is really nice and shiny. It is really soft as well, so I can attest to tencel really being super soft, and it is really silky to the touch as well. Now I want to compare it to the barrette silk that you can see over here. I do believe that the tencel is actually pretty comparable in terms of its sheen to the barrette silk. So while this tencel yarn might not be considered as shiny as silk, I do believe it is pretty comparable to the barrette silk. So some examples of 100% lyocell yarn, as I showed you just now, the Wool and the Gang Tina tape yarn. It is a worsted weight 100% lyocell yarn with a flat tape-like structure. It is marketed as being softer than silk and cooler than linen. It is great for drapey garments, but it has a fairly limited color range and it is pretty pricey as well. It has a yardage of 150 meters per 100 grams and is knit up with 5 to 8mm needles. The Earnling number 14 is another option as well. It is a sport weight 100% lyocell yarn with approximately 114 meters or 127 yards per 50 grams. It is knit up at a gauge of 23 stitches per 10 cm on 3.5mm needles. So next up is viscose. In terms of durability, I would say viscose holds up fairly well. It is not as strong as cotton, especially when wet. So garments made with viscose may require a bit more love and TLC when it comes to washing them. It has good elasticity, offering more stretch and recovery than linen or cotton, which helps garments maintain their shape better over time. Viscose has a high sheen, giving finished fabrics a glossy, almost silk-like appearance when knit up. It is also very soft, smooth, and comfortable against the skin. So, like other plant-based fibers, viscose is also highly breathable and moisture absorbent, which helps to keep you cool in hot and humid conditions. Unfortunately, when it comes to viscose, I couldn't really find any yarns that are 100% viscose. They usually exist in blends, at least from my research. Bamboo in terms of durability has moderate strength, but it can peel over time, especially in high friction areas or with frequent wear. It has low elasticity, which means, once again, the garments will stretch out over time. 100% bamboo can stretch out and lose their shape if not handled or stored carefully. And so sometimes if you want to have a garment made out of bamboo, you might want to buy it in a blend instead. Maybe a blend with cotton that's a bit more durable, or with an animal-based fiber to keep its shape. So one of bamboo's most notable qualities is its high natural sheen. It is very similar to silk. It gives finished garments a very smooth and elegant appearance, and bamboo is also exceptionally soft and smooth to the touch. It is often described as feeling cool and silky against the skin. Yeah, so if you have sensitive skin, or if you want to wear it as a light layering piece, I would say bamboo or a bamboo blend is a very good option. Finally, it offers excellent breathability and has good moisture wicking properties. It is an ideal fiber for staying cool and dry in hot weather, and once again, I am unfortunately unable to find any 100% bamboo yarns that I feel comfortable recommending. So if you have any of those recommendations, you can just comment down below. Now, just a quick interesting point about tencel, viscose, and bamboo. I feel like these fibers are a family and they are all cousins in a way, because of how similar they are. When I first started doing research, I really was confused about these three fibers, so I thought I'll clarify it for you guys. Firstly, they are all made from plant-based cellulose, but they are not exactly the same. I would say the differences come down to where the plants come from and how the fibers are processed, which changes how they feel and behave. Another thing is also the fiber that they are made up of. So viscose is the broadest term. It is a type of rayon made from wood pulp, including eucalyptus. However, bamboo and tencel are primarily made out of bamboo and eucalyptus respectively, although sometimes there are exceptions as well. Another thing is that tencel is also considered more environmentally friendly because it is made using a closed loop process. What this basically means is that the water and the chemicals used to create the tencel fibers are actually recycled, hence reducing wastage, making it a more eco-friendly option of the three. So a fun fact is that bamboo yarn can actually be either bamboo viscose or bamboo tencel, depending on how it is made. So I just thought I'll share this with you guys in case you found it as confusing as I did. Now, we have moved on to the last portion, and these are blends. I personally really love buying yarns that come in blends. For me, I find that the best blends are usually a mix of plant and animal fibers. You get the breathability, the moisture wicking properties of plant-based fibers, but at the same time, you get the memory and the elasticity from the animal-based fibers. So usually the final feel of the yarn will lean towards the fiber that's in the highest proportion. So if a yarn is mostly, let's say, cotton with a bit of wool, it will mostly behave like cotton. However, it does have the extra softness and the stretch from wool. So here are some of my favorite blends with some details. I will not go too in-depth for these yarns because I am suggesting quite a lot. The first one is, I think, the most common blend, which is cotton and merino blends. So the first one that I have to recommend is the Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino. It is a soft fingering weight blend of 70% cotton, 30% merino wool. You'll be getting 250 meters per 50 grams. The second, more budget-friendly option is the Drops Cotton Merino. It is a DK weight yarn with 50% wool and 50% cotton with a yardage of 110 meters per 50 grams. Kapat Cotton Wool 3 is a 50% merino wool, 50% cotton spot weight yarn with about 230 meters or 251 yards per 50 grams. BC Garn Bio Balance is a 55% organic wool, 45% cotton spot weight yarn with around 225 meters or 246 yards per 50 grams. The last one I have to recommend is the Filcolana Mercy, which is 50% superwash merino, 50% Pima cotton, fingering weight with 200 meters or 218 yards per 50 grams. So based on these blends that you see over here, if you're living in a more warm climate, I would recommend the Knitting for Olive Cotton Merino. You know, it has 70% cotton, so it will be the most breathable of all the options. So otherwise, if you are living in a cooler country, you might be able to get away with the BC Garn Bio Balance of 55% organic wool. With that being said, even though it's 55% organic wool, you know, it is mostly quite balanced between the plant-based and animal-based fiber. The next blend that I have is Silk and Merino. So I feel like these blends really give a more subtle sheen, extra softness. It just elevates the garment. If you're looking for a less casual and more semi-smart casual kind of look, then silk and merino might be a good option for you as well. So the first one I have to recommend is the Malabrigo Silky Merino. It is a DK weight, 51% silk, 49% merino, and it is 137 meters or 150 yards per 50 grams. It is also hand dyed and it comes in beautiful colors. I have one over here. This is Jupiter and it is this beautiful maroon color. I'm thinking of making the Sweetheart Revenge dress with this. So you can see that I'm looking for a more elegant, classy kind of sheen to my dress, and hence why I chose a blend with silk. The next one I have to recommend is Gepard Wool and Soft. It is 60% merino wool, 40% Tassa silk, fingering weight with a yardage of 240 meters per 50 grams. Now, ever since I saw that Gepard Wool and Soft was recommended by Tea Number 1, it got onto my radar and I've been really looking at this yarn and wanting to use it for something. I'm just not too sure if it's too warm with it being 60% merino wool. However, it looks like a really nice yarn to work with, and yeah, I would definitely be open to knitting something and maybe just wearing it in air conditioning places. The next combination that I have is cotton, linen, and viscose. This is a bit more of a specific blend, and I have a few recommendations for that. The first one is Drop Spell, which is my new love. It is a DK2 worsted blend that is 53% cotton, 33% viscose, and 14% linen with a yardage of 120 meters per 50 grams. The Sandnes Garn Lina and Tin Lina is a DK2 worsted weight and fingering weight respectively, with 110 meters per 50 grams for the Lina and 220 meters per 50 grams for the Tin Lina. Its fiber composition is exactly the same as Drop Spell, so if you're looking for a more budget-friendly option, you can just go with the Drop Spell. I bought a few colors. The only thing that I wish Drop Spell had a little bit more of is a color range. I find that the color range is super limited, but there are still so many beautiful colors out of this limited color range, so I think it is still a pretty viable option. The last recommendation I have is Feel Nature by Fildar. It is 48% cotton, 28% viscose, 24% linen, and it's a DK weight with 165 meters or 180 yards per 50 grams. The next blend that I have is cotton and linen. The first recommendation is the Eunling number 21. It is 60% cotton, 40% linen. It is a spot weight at 195 meters per 50 grams. The Drops Bomulin has 53% cotton, 47% linen. It is an Aran to worsted weight with 85 meters per 50 grams. This is not really my favorite, but I did buy the Bomulin. I'll show it to you guys. So I did buy the Drops Bomulin as well because it is one of the recommended yarns of a pattern that I am interested in trying out. So right off the bat, you can tell, or at least I can tell, that it is so much more of a rustic feel and it is pretty thick as well. I will compare it with the Drop Spell for you, and you just, I can't really let you guys feel the softness, but the Drop Spell is definitely way softer than the Drops Bomulin. I would say they are actually pretty similar in terms of the thickness. It looks pretty similar to me. I'm not so sure. The main difference is Drop Spell is so soft and the Drops Bomulin is so hard. It feels like I'm touching raffia or paper, and that's definitely attributed to the higher linen content. So you can see from 14% to 47%, there is a vast difference in terms of how the final yarn will feel on your hands. And so that's how important fiber composition is. The last one that I have to recommend is the BC Garn Alino. It is 50% linen, 50% cotton. It is a spot weight with 125 meters per 50 grams. This is the highest linen composition that I have recommended, so I'm not sure how it will feel like. I suspect that it will be super rough on the hands, but it will make for a nice garment eventually. But do with this information what you will. The last blend that I have to recommend, and this is not a yarn that I've ever heard of. I only stumbled upon it when I was researching for this video, and I just wanted to include it because I thought it was an interesting blend of fibers, but I'm not sure how it will actually work and if it's actually a good yarn, but I just wanted to include it if you guys are interested in trying an interesting blend. So this is cotton, bamboo, and polyester, and the yarn that I have to recommend is the Tropical Lane Bikini Bamboo yarn. 38% cotton, 57% bamboo, 5% elastic polyester, and it is a fingering weight with about 200 meters or 218 yards per 50 grams. So the reason why I included this here is because this yarn is actually advertised as being able to be knitted up into a bikini, and you know, given that it's a bikini, it has to be tight fitting, it cannot stretch out over time, and that's why they included the 5% elastic polyester, which is apparently supposed to help the garment retain its shape over time and retain its elasticity as well as its memory. So this could be a good viable option for you guys if you don't want to knit with animal fibers at all, you don't want to knit with like a merino wool or anything, then this might be a good option for you if you still want to make garments that are maybe tight fitting with negative ease and you don't want it to stretch out over time. So just putting this here for you guys' consideration. Choosing the right yarn for summer goes beyond just knowing the yarn weight or the brand on the label. It's really about understanding the fibers and how they work together. Whether you're working with 100% plant-based fibers or blends with animal-based fibers, it is really about knowing what each fiber brings to the table and in what proportion, because this can either make or break your summer garment. I hope this video gives you a better and clearer understanding of what to look out for when you're buying summer yarns, and I hope that after this video you are empowered to buy the yarns that are suitable for you and your climate. That's all I have for this video. Happy knitting!